Hello and welcome to the Purpose Matrix. I'm excited to talk to you today about something that has changed my life, and I hope it can change yours too. I've been educating myself for many years on different topics, and I'll talk about what those topics have been. But look, we all want to grow. We all want to get better. But the reality is we have to take the time. We have to set it aside. And it's hard sometimes to do the real work of learning, of educating yourself, and especially in some important areas of life. But we have to do it. And I'm going to talk to you today about why your first investment should always be in education, because it's the foundation for every area of life, for everything that you do. But the reality is we're always educating ourselves. We just may not know it. You know, if we're on TV, if we're on social media, so the question is, are we doing it intentionally or by default? We're going to talk today about that. We're also going to talk about the 4 simple ways or 4 different methods of education. You may be using some of them. Obviously, one of them is listening to podcasts. So appreciate you listening and your support. But there's some others as well that I want to talk about. And we're going to talk about today what 15 minutes a day can do to your life. But we're also going to talk about some scary statistics of what most of America is doing and how they're educating themselves and the compound effect of that. Which isn't as good, obviously, as 15 minutes a day on positive education. We're going to learn and reference quotes from John Wooden, Mark Twain, Charlie Tremendous Jones, Gandhi, and others, and some really good insights and wisdom and quotes from them on how they think about education and the importance of it. So if you want to become wiser, more focused, or more grounded in your purpose, this is really going to help you out today. And really, the important thing is if you're moving in a direction that you feel strongly about, education is a critical component of being successful in that. And that's why it's part of the Purpose Matrix. So first, as I said, we're all educating ourselves. And if you think, I love this quote because I said, we're all educating ourselves. It's just whether we're being disciplined or not. But Derek Bach, he's, I love this. If you think education is expensive, try ignorance. And what's interesting is, the most basic form of education is not expensive anymore. It just takes time and commitment. Books are not expensive. If you see a $15 or $20 book that you think might impact your life, you need to buy it. You don't even think about it. Some people say, hey, can I borrow that book or this book, or can we share? That's fine. Buy the book, mark it up, read it. Don't even second guess it. Just spend the $15 or $20 on the book. Podcasts are free. So obviously you can be doing that as well. Many people, again, they want the outcome of the wisdom without the discipline of learning. And it's not going to work. So the first thing I'm going to talk about a little bit is that I said we're all educating ourselves, and we are all educating ourselves. It's just whether we're doing that intentionally or by default. I love the quote. I learned it from Tim Kite, who's been impactful for me. You've maybe heard it before, but pay attention to what you pay attention to. So if you're on social media, who are you following? Is it good content or bad content? Are you educating yourself on garbage or educating yourself on things that you want to be doing? But pay attention to what you pay attention to. If you're watching TV, what are you watching? What are your kids exposed to? There's so much negative garbage out there. The average American adult spends 7 hours a day on screens, 2.5 hours a day on social media. Just to put that in context, 2.5 hours a day on social media adds up to 38 days a year on social media. More than a month of your year is spent on social media. Over a decade, you're going to be spending more than a year of your time over the course of a decade on social media. Think about what you could do with that time. Think about what that time on social media is doing to you. It's poison. If it's garbage, it's poisoning your brain. It's poisoning your mindset, and you have to course correct. You have to change it. And again, you can see it. You can see the negative information that you have coming in, whether it's just, they're listening to conversations, the ads, the promotions, whatever it might be, but you're being brainwashed, and you need to course correct. You need to change it. One thing that I like is, are you shaping your lives? If you don't choose what's educating you, the algorithms are going to choose how to educate you and what to educate you with. We're unintentionally disciplining ourselves with TikTok, Netflix, and wondering why we feel there's anxiousness or lack of motivation or just lack of spirituality is because these different platforms or the people in these platforms are educating you and you're not selecting that. So I'll close this section with this. Your mind is your greatest asset. We need to build our mindset. So you need to invest time accordingly in good information and get rid of the bad educational content that you are consuming, because we are all educating ourselves. It's just whether we're being disciplined about it. So now I want to talk about how can we be disciplined about it? What should we be doing? And I love this quote from John Wooden, which he said, if I'm through learning, I'm through. And we have to treat learning and education as a lifestyle, not a phase. A lot of times people think high school or college and they think a phase of their life where they're going to be learning. And we have to get rid of that mindset. We have to get rid of that concept. We have to look at books and content that we're consuming as mentors to us. Charlie Tremendous Jones, he has a quote, "You will be the person in 5 years. You'll be the same person in 5 years as you are today, except for the books you read and the people that with whom you associate." And I love that quote. And it really, the point of today's discussion, we're going to talk about association, in another episode, but there's so many valuable books out there. I mean, think about like a book like Nelson Mandela's book. He spent the later years of his life writing his autobiography, and he put all of his best wisdom into that over so many different trials and tribulations, ups and downs, so many experiences, so much learning that he had. He packaged that into a book that we can buy for $20 and spend a few hours to read. So think about the value of that. The value of that book is worth so much more than the $20 that we might spend on it or the time. There's another quote that says, "The greatest minds in human history have spent years condensing the best of what they know into a few pages." That's from Miracle Murnane is the name. And I think that's so good because, again, John Wooden is another example. He spent so much time putting together what he thought was the most important information that you could possibly learn from all the success that he had, and he put it into a book. How would we not read that book? We have to read those types of books. If it's aligned with our general principles and if it's something that we want to be learning about, right? So, if John Wooden's book, it's about leadership, but if we're not interested in that, maybe we won't read it. But there's a lot of other things in there. Or, if there's a book on family or parenting and you're not a parent right now, then maybe you don't read that book. But just the point is, find the books that apply to the areas of life that are important to you, or just to anything that you want to get better at, and go get them, because it can change your life. So you can hear through my voice that I'm very passionate about the importance of education and education from great authors in different areas of life. So, but now I'm going to talk about really there's 4 key areas of education that we can talk about. The first one, and we've talked about it primarily, and it's what we think about the most, is reading. Of course, reading is foundational, and I think just being disciplined about what you're reading was what's so important. There's so many good books out there. Mark Twain has a quote: "The person who doesn't read is no better off than the person who cannot read." Think about that. The person who doesn't read is no better off than the person who cannot read. So if you're not reading books and learning from great people of the past or the present, then why even have the ability to read in the first place? So I love that. So of course, reading, I think when you are reading, your approach to that is important. If you're just reading and consuming, I don't think that's a bad thing. I think there's a better approach. I don't think that's a bad thing, because if you're reading John Wood and Nelson Mandela and all these people, in a way, you're hanging out with them, you're getting into their minds and you're learning something, but you might not retain as much as otherwise. What I do is I read the books, I underline and I earmark the page, and a dog ear at the top means that's a good quote or a good line or a good section I really liked. If I dog ear the bottom, that means I really want to go back to that every single time I pick up that book. I'm going to go back, and that, one book might earn 0 of those or 2 to 3 or 4 of those. But I mark those, and then once a year I go back to some of my favorite books and I just read through my notes from time to time. I know there's other people that every single book, they're really disciplined about reading it, underlining it, earmarking it, and then writing it out, and then what am I going to apply? And I think, you can take that at different levels. Don't overwhelm yourself with not having the perfect process. Just start, as I say in a lot of things, but reading is so valuable. The other thing is writing. And this is a approach to education that I didn't adopt until just a couple of years ago, but it's been really impactful on me. And when you start to write things down and get your thoughts on paper, your retention rate just goes to the next level. So writing things down as you're reading these books, or like, if there's a thoughtful question or reflection question at the end of a chapter, maybe you write that down and then write like, what are your thoughts on the topic? But writing and journaling is so powerful. I thought journaling when I was younger was like journaling about just like almost fictional things, or I don't even know what it was. But journaling is just write. Don't overthink it. Just write. Reflect. What did you think about it? Did you agree with the content or disagree? How might you apply it? But writing is so powerful. Obviously, if you're listening to this, then you're listening to podcasts, you're educating yourself through this platform. So I congratulate you on that. And that's the third approach to education, is just listening. And we can do that through podcast, YouTube. There's all kinds of good videos on YouTube. So we can maybe call this listening and watching. Audible books. If you don't like to read specifically, you can listen to Audible books. There's a lot of good Audible books out there. And I particularly like it when the authors themselves are the ones that are doing the Audible book. And a quote that I like, and I don't have the person here, but listening has taught me a lot more than talking has. And by the way, I kind of read that and I'm like, well, I'm here the one talking. So am I learning anything or not? But I will add this about preparing to talk to others or preparing to teach to others. So first, listening, there's so many opportunities there. But when you're listening or educating yourself with the intent to teach, and then oftentimes writing, which I do, your retention rate gets even higher. So the more you can add these levels of or layers of education on top of each other, the more you'll retain and the more your mindset will grow. And the last approach to education is probably one that we don't think about a lot, but it's, we'll call it silence. In the book Miracle Morning, Hal Elrod talks about his life savers acronym. But the first one is start your day with silence, with prayer. This could be prayer, meditation, whatever your approach is, but just sitting in silence with no agenda. Or you can do it with no agenda and just sit there, or you can have a topic or something you want to be thinking about, but just sitting there in silence can be really, really valuable. So finally, I want to talk about, I talked about the scary statistics of social media and screen time and how much that is compounding. And the reality is, whatever you're doing today for education, it is compounding. If you're on social media 1 hour a day, it's compounding. That's 365 hours a year. That's a half a month. Okay. But if it's 2 hours or 2.5 hours, as I talked about, then you're on social media for more than a month every single year. That's a scary thought. What if you change that? What if it's 15 minutes a day on good content? So you're listening to podcasts already. So that's hopefully you're listening to 15, 30 minutes a day of our podcast and our show, and we appreciate it, but other great podcasts and shows as well. But what if you did a little bit more? What if you just stretched it by 5 minutes? If you educate yourself on just 15 minutes a day, that's hundreds of books that you'll read over the course of 10 years, right? That's thousands of hours of podcasts that you'll listen to over 10 years. This will change your life. It will change the way you think. So I just encourage you to think about the compound effect and pay attention. If you have been educating yourself, try to pay attention to this as well, because pay attention to how you're growing, and then the people with whom you associate and surround yourself with. Are they educating themselves and they're growing? Are they maybe they're doing a lot of it and separating themselves from you, or maybe you're doing much more than them and you're separating from them, which isn't the goal. The goal isn't to compare. It's more, it helps give you like a frame of reference for how you're doing personally. And the goal for you is to become the best version of yourself. And in order to do that, there's so many good educational tools and resources out there. And I think, the compound effect, we talked about screens and social media, books, but then positive books or podcast, writing, silence. But just think about what 15 minutes a day could do, because you're compounding no matter what. You're either compounding your wisdom or you're compounding your distractions, your garbage, right? And then garbage in, garbage out. But you're compounding your mindset in a good direction or in a not so good direction, and pay attention to what that direction is. And the important thing about education is that education builds confidence to act. So if you're like me, where, really overthink things, or, it takes a lot to have the courage to act, education is a foundational item that will help you give you the courage to act. You'll say, okay, you know what? I've read long enough. I've read about this topic. I'm going to go act. Or maybe it's a small step, but I've read about leadership, so I'm going to try this leadership approach and see if it works. But it's going to give you the confidence to act. And when you combine education with action, that's when real growth happens, because you're learning, education, action. Okay, I'm going to course correct and modify this, or I'm going to go read more, and it just compounds upon itself. So education really builds confidence. And then if you think about doing this over the course, again, of 1 year, 10 years, and the compound effect of the education you have and the courageous actions that you've taken, this can be life-changing stuff. So it's just so, so important. I wouldn't be talking about it today, or I wouldn't have it in the purpose matrix if I didn't think it was important. So the other thing is, a lot of times, and this is definitely me and was the case for me, my education, I started reading books when I was in my early 20s, but that was about business, finance, leadership, but very little about family. And I didn't start reading or educating myself about family or parenting or relationships well after I was married or had kids. Faith was very, very minimal. I went to church, but I wasn't reading the Bible. I wasn't reading any faith-based books. Health, I wasn't doing anything to educate myself on health until just a couple of years ago. My focus was on leadership and finance. And I think the question for you is, what are the areas of life that are most important to you right now? Or where do you have a gap where you really just know you could learn more, and learning more could have a big impact on your life? And there's so many good books out there, so many good podcasts, so many good educational resources that you can tap into in every single area of life. And this, even if it's not in the area of life, it's just, I just want to be better at this. I want to be a better baseball player. I want to be a better leader. I want to be a better manager. I want to be a better coach. I want to be a better cook. Anything that you want to be better at, you can apply the purpose matrix, the peace principles, and education to that. There's content out there for all of this stuff. So if it's important to you, then you need to educate yourself. And I'll close with this. How are you educating yourself? Is it intentionally, or is it with junk, right? What approach to education are you using, or what approach are you not using today? And maybe which one can you apply? Just try it. If you've never written before, you never journaled before, go grab a notebook, go hide from your family so they don't see you and don't catch you. But just start to write. The next book that you read, when it has a reflection question and ask a question at the end, instead of skipping over it and going to the next chapter, just write. What would your answer be? Write 2 sentences or write 20 sentences, but just try a different approach to education. Do it in the most important areas of life. Maybe do it where you think you have a gap in your life and you have room to grow. But just think, what if you just committed 15 minutes a day, just 15 minutes a day, to either reading or writing or listening or silence? What could happen to you? What could the impact be? And I promise you, over the course of a decade, it will have a big impact. And it will be like, a lot of us think about our first investment as, okay, is that going to be in the stock market or in real estate or whatever it might be? You need to invest in yourself. And it is a inexpensive, but highly, highly valuable investment. So it's so, so important to educate yourself. It's so inexpensive. It just takes a little time and discipline to do it. But I encourage you to take that time to have the discipline to do it. I want to thank all of you, all of our listeners for just tuning in, checking out what we have to say. I'll say that it's been a great run here, and we're just having a lot of fun. We have a lot of great guests coming up. So thanks so much for your support. Whatever platform you're on, if you can please just give us a review, subscribe. If you're on YouTube, subscribe to the YouTube channel. That really helps us. As I talked about the algorithms earlier, but look, I want this type of content to be in front of more people, and I want it to beat the garbage education, right? My goal isn't to beat the other good education, but I want it to beat out the garbage education. So you can help me out and help us out getting the message out by subscribing, liking, whatever it might be. So I'll close with this. This is a quote from Gandhi. Learn as if you were going to live forever and live as if you were going to die tomorrow. But that's the closing comment. Learn as if you were going to live forever. And let's build our mindset. Let's keep learning until we're 70, 80, 90. It doesn't matter. If we have the ability or the capability to educate ourselves, let's keep doing it. Let's learn forever. For the Purpose Matrix, I'm Phil Moeller, signing off.